Maria's alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning, just like it did every single day. She reached over and silenced it before it could wake her daughter sleeping in the next room. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms that she shared with her mother and 10-year-old daughter Sophia. But it was home, and she was grateful for it. She got dressed quietly in the dark, pulling on her worn jeans and a simple t-shirt. Her work uniform was in her bag. She always changed at work because she didn't want to wear out her clothes on the subway. Every dollar mattered when you were raising a child on your own. By 5:15, she was on the train heading downtown. The car was mostly empty at this hour, just a few other early morning workers heading to their shifts. Maria closed her eyes and let her head rest against the cool window. She was tired. She was always tired these days. Her first job started at 6. She cleaned offices in the financial district, emptying trash cans and vacuuming carpets in buildings where people made more money in a day than she made in a month. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. She took pride in doing it well. By noon, she'd finished her cleaning shift and grabbed a quick lunch from a street cart. Then she headed across town to her second job. From 1 until 9 at night, she worked as a waitress at Romano's, an upscale Italian restaurant where businessmen took clients and couples celebrated anniversaries. The tips were decent, especially on weekends. Between both jobs, she could just barely cover rent, food, and her mother's medical expenses. But 3 nights a week, Maria had a third job. This one didn't pay anything at all. At 11 at night, after most of the city had gone to bed, Maria took the subway to the concert hall on the east side. The building was beautiful, all marble columns and golden chandeliers. During the day, wealthy patrons in expensive clothes filled the seats to watch world-class musicians perform. At night, it belonged to people like Maria, the invisible workers who kept it clean. She'd been cleaning the concert hall for almost 2 years now. The pay was slightly better than her morning job, and the work was easier. Most nights, she was alone in the building except for the security guard who sat at the front desk reading his newspaper. Maria started on the main floor, working her way through the lobbies and restrooms. She mopped the marble floors until they gleamed, polished the brass railings, and emptied every wastebasket. The work was methodical, almost meditative. Her hands moved on autopilot while her mind wandered. Tonight, like most nights, her thoughts drifted to music. Maria had grown up in a small town upstate where her mother had been a piano teacher. Their house had always been filled with music. Her mother had started teaching her to play when she was 5 years old, and Maria had taken to it naturally. By the time she was a teenager, she was winning competitions. Everyone said she had real talent, that she could make something of herself. She'd even gotten into a good music school on a partial scholarship. For 2 years, she'd studied there, practicing 6 hours a day, dreaming of becoming a concert pianist. Life had felt full of possibility back then, but then her father died suddenly, leaving debts no one knew about. Her mother couldn't work as much because of arthritis in her hands. Maria had to drop out of school and get a job. Then she met Sophia's father, fell in love too quickly, got pregnant. He left before Sophia was born. That was 11 years ago. Sometimes it felt like a lifetime. Sometimes it felt like yesterday. Maria finished cleaning the main floor and took the service elevator up to the concert hall itself. This was always her favorite part of the night. She pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into the vast auditorium. Even empty, the space was magnificent. Rows and rows of red velvet seats faced the enormous stage. The ceiling soared overhead, painted with elaborate frescoes. And there, center stage under a spotlight that someone had forgotten to turn off, sat the concert grand piano. It was a Steinway, one of the finest pianos in the world. Maria had read about it in a program she'd found while cleaning. The instrument was worth over $200,000, more money than she would make in 5 years of working both her jobs. She started cleaning the aisles, working her way down toward the stage. She tried not to look at the piano. She tried not to think about it. But it drew her attention like a magnet. When she finished vacuuming the aisles, she climbed the stairs to the stage. She dusted the music stands and swept the wooden floor, and then she stood there 3 feet away from the piano, staring at it. Her fingers itched. It had been so long since she'd played. There was a public library near her apartment that had an old upright piano in the community room, but there were always people around, and Maria felt self-conscious playing in front of strangers. She hadn't touched a piano in months. She looked around the empty hall. The security guard never came upstairs. No one would know. Before she could talk herself out of it, Maria sat down on the piano bench. The leather was smooth and cool under her legs. She lifted the fallboard, revealing the pristine ivory keys. Her hands were shaking slightly as she positioned them over the keyboard. These hands that spent all day scrubbing toilets and carrying heavy trays. These hands that were rough and calloused and nothing like the smooth, manicured hands of the pianist who usually played this instrument. She took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the hall. Maria's eyes closed as her fingers found their way across the keys. The muscle memory was still there, buried under years of exhaustion and responsibility. The music flowed out of her, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like herself. She forgot about the dirty mop bucket waiting in the wings. She forgot about the stack of bills on her kitchen table. She forgot about her aching feet and her tired eyes. There was only the music, the way the notes connected to something deep inside her chest, the way the sound filled the enormous space and came back to her like an embrace. She was so lost in the piece that she didn't hear the door open. She didn't hear the footsteps in the aisle. She didn't notice anything until a sharp voice cut through the music like a knife. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Maria's hands froze on the keys. Her eyes flew open. Standing in the aisle halfway down toward the stage was a tall woman in an elegant black coat. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her expression was one of complete outrage. Maria recognized her immediately. Everyone who worked at the concert hall knew Victoria Ashford. She was the principal conductor of the symphony orchestra, one of the most respected musicians in the country. Her photo was on posters all over the building, and right now, she was staring at Maria like she'd just caught her stealing. "I'm so sorry," Maria stammered, jumping up from the bench so quickly she nearly knocked it over. I didn't mean to. I was cleaning and You were just what?" Victoria walked closer, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. "Playing a $200,000 instrument with your cleaning hands?" Maria looked down at her hands, suddenly ashamed of the roughness, the broken nails, the calluses. "I used to play," she said quietly. "Years ago. I couldn't help myself." "I'm sorry." Victoria climbed the stairs to the stage. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Everything about her screamed sophistication and success. Everything Maria wasn't. "This piano is a precision instrument," Victoria said coldly. "It requires constant maintenance and care. It's not a toy for the cleaning staff to amuse themselves with during their shifts." "I know," Maria said, backing away from the piano like it might burn her. "I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. You're right about that." Victoria's eyes swept over Maria, taking in her cheap clothes and worn shoes, the cleaning cart visible in the wings. "You're here to clean. That's your job. So please stick to your mop and leave the music to actual musicians." The words hit Maria like a physical blow. She felt her face flush hot with shame and anger. But what could she say? Victoria was right. She was just the janitor. This wasn't her world anymore. Maybe it never had been. "Of course," Maria managed to say. "I'll finish cleaning and get out of your way." She grabbed her cleaning cart and hurried off the stage, not looking back. Behind her, she heard Victoria settling herself at the piano, beginning to play scales. The sound followed Maria as she rushed through the rest of her work, desperate now to just finish and leave. On the subway ride home at 2 a.m, Maria couldn't stop the tears from sliding down her cheeks. A few other late-night passengers glanced at her but looked away quickly. In this city, everyone had their own problems. No one wanted to take on someone else's. By the time she got home, she'd pulled herself together. She checked on Sophia, who was sleeping peacefully, her math homework still spread out on the bed beside her. She peeked in on her mother, who was snoring softly. Maria brushed her teeth and fell into bed exhausted. Tomorrow would be another long day, another double shift, another endless cycle of work and worry and trying to keep everyone fed and safe. But as she drifted off to sleep, her fingers were still moving slightly, playing invisible keys, remembering the feeling of making music one more time. 3 weeks passed, and Maria tried to forget what happened that night at the concert hall. She kept her head down during her cleaning shifts, avoided the main auditorium entirely, and told herself it didn't matter. So what if some fancy conductor thought she wasn't good enough to touch a piano? Maria had more important things to worry about, like the fact that her mother needed new medication that insurance wouldn't cover, or that Sophia needed new shoes because she'd outgrown her old ones. or that the landlord had just announced he was raising the rent by $200 starting next month. $200. Maria did the math in her head constantly, trying to figure out where she could find it. She was already working 16-hour days. There weren't enough hours left to take on another job. She'd have to cut something. Maybe they could eat less meat. Maybe she could skip lunch entirely. On Saturday afternoon, Maria was at Romano's, her second job at the upscale restaurant. Weekends were always busy, which meant better tips. She needed the shift to go well. "Maria, you're on the private dining room tonight," her manager Tony told her during the pre-shift meeting. "We've got a party of 8 coming in at 7. High rollers. Be on your best behavior." "When am I not?" Maria asked with a tired smile. "True enough. You're one of my most reliable people." Tony handed her the reservation slip. "Last name is Ashford. They've reserved the room until 11. Maria's stomach dropped. Ashford. It couldn't be the same person. It was a common enough name, right? But when 7 o'clock came and she walked into the private dining room with water glasses, there she was. Victoria Ashford sitting at the head of the table, laughing at something one of her guests had said. She wore a deep blue dress that probably cost more than Maria's monthly rent, and her jewelry caught the light every time she moved. Maria's hands shook slightly as she poured water. She kept her eyes down, hoping Victoria wouldn't recognize her. After all, the conductor had barely looked at her face that night. To someone like Victoria, the cleaning staff was practically invisible. "Thank you," Victoria said absently when Maria filled her glass, not even glancing up. Maria breathed a small sigh of relief and slipped out of the room. Maybe she could get through this shift without any drama. For the next 2 hours, Maria moved in and out of the private dining room, bringing courses, refilling drinks, clearing plates. The group was celebrating something. Victoria kept making toasts and everyone laughed at her stories. They were talking about music, about performances, about people and places that existed in a world so far from Maria's reality, they might as well have been discussing life on another planet. "The gala is going to be spectacular this year," Victoria was saying as Maria cleared the appetizer plates. "We've really outdone ourselves with the program." "Are you doing that charity thing again?" one of the women asked. "The one where regular people can audition?" Victoria laughed and Maria heard the condescension in it. "Oh yes, the undiscovered talent competition. It's mostly for publicity, to be honest. Makes the donors feel like we're giving back to the community." "Has anyone ever actually been good?" a man in an expensive suit asked. "Not really," Victoria said, swirling her wine. "We get a lot of enthusiastic amateurs. People who took piano lessons as children and think that makes them musicians. It's somewhat painful to sit through, honestly, but the board insists we do it. It brings in donations from people who like to think anyone can make it if they just try hard enough." The table laughed. Maria felt her jaw clench as she stacked plates. She told herself to let it go, to not care what these people thought. "The reality is," Victoria continued, "real talent is rare. It takes years of proper training, the right education, the right opportunities. You can't just work hard and become a concert pianist any more than you can work hard and become a brain surgeon. Some things require a certain pedigree." Maria carried the plates toward the kitchen, her mind racing. An audition. A chance to perform with the symphony. The gala was open to anyone. She pushed through the kitchen door and set the plates down harder than she meant to. One of the other waiters, Danny, looked over at her. "You okay?" "Fine," Maria said. But she wasn't fine. She was angry. She was so tired of people like Victoria Ashford deciding who got chances and who didn't, who was worthy and who wasn't. When she brought out the main courses, she listened more carefully. The gala was in 2 months. Auditions were open registration, happening in 6 weeks. You just had to show up and play. The idea was crazy. Maria knew it was crazy. She hadn't seriously played piano in over a decade. She had no time to practice. She had no money for nice clothes or proper sheet music. She'd be competing against people who'd been training their whole lives, people with resources and connections. But Victoria's voice kept echoing in her head. "You're here to clean. Leave the music to actual musicians. Who decided who got to be an actual musician? Who decided who was allowed to have dreams?" Maria made it through the rest of the shift on autopilot. When she brought out dessert, Victoria was telling another story and the whole table was laughing. No one looked at Maria, no one ever did. She was just the waitress, part of the scenery. The party finally left around 11 and Victoria left a decent tip. Not generous, but decent. She probably thought she was being charitable. After her shift, Maria sat in the restaurant's break room and pulled out her phone. She searched for information about the gala auditions. The website was slick and professional, full of photos of beautiful people in evening gowns and tuxedos. Undiscovered talent competition, the banner read. Open to all aspiring classical musicians in the metropolitan area. The winner would perform with the full symphony orchestra at the annual gala, in front of an audience of over 1,000 people. It was the kind of opportunity that could change someone's life. Maria knew she should close the website and forget about it. What was she thinking? She was a 34-year-old single mother who worked as a janitor and a waitress. She didn't have time for fantasies, but her finger hovered over the registration button. What if? When Maria got home that night, her mother was still awake, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea. Her hands were wrapped in compression gloves to help with the arthritis pain. "You're late," her mother said. "Big party. Good tips, though." Maria poured herself a glass of water and sat down. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you remember the Rachmaninoff?" "The second concerto?" Her mother's eyes lit up with recognition. "You played that for your final recital at school. Before you had to leave. Why?" Maria took a deep breath. "There's an audition. A competition. The winner performs with the symphony." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "And you're thinking about trying?" "It's stupid, right? I haven't really played in years. I don't have time to practice. I'd be competing against people who've been training nonstop while I've been cleaning toilets." "Is that what you think?" her mother asked gently. "That you're not good enough because you've been working instead of playing? Isn't that how it works?" Her mother reached across the table and took Maria's rough, calloused hand in her own arthritic one. "Listen to me. You have more talent in these working hands than most people develop in a lifetime of comfortable practice. Do you know why? Because you understand something those privileged students don't. You understand what music costs, what it means, why it matters. Mama, when did you last play?" "Really play?" Maria thought about the night at the concert hall before Victoria interrupted. The feeling of the keys under her fingers, the way the music had made her feel alive for the first time in months, a few weeks ago. And did your hands remember? They had. Despite everything, the music was still there, buried beneath exhaustion and responsibility and years of just surviving. "There's a library 3 blocks away," her mother continued. "They have a piano in the community room. I checked. It's available for practice if you book ahead. It's not a concert grand, but it's a piano. When would I practice? I work 16 hours a day. You'd find the time. You'd make it." Her mother squeezed her hand. "The question isn't whether you have time, Mia. The question is whether you have courage." Maria lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling. Sophia was asleep beside her, taking up more than her fair share of the bed like she always did. From the next room came the sound of her mother's soft snoring. These were the people Maria was responsible for. Every decision she made affected them. If she spent time practicing piano, that was time away from work, away from earning money they needed. If she failed at this audition, and she probably would, it would all have been for nothing. But Victoria's voice kept echoing in her mind. "Leave the music to actual musicians." Maria picked up her phone and before she could talk herself out of it, registered for the audition. The confirmation email came through immediately. She was number 47 on the audition list. She had 6 weeks to prepare. The next morning, exhausted from only 4 hours of sleep, Maria stopped at the library on her way to work. The librarian, an older woman named Ruth, smiled at her. "I'd like to book practice time on the piano," Maria said. "As much as you can give me." Ruth pulled up a schedule on her computer. "Well, you're in luck. Not many people use it. I can give you an hour every morning at 5:30 if you want. And weekend afternoons, I'll take it. All of it." And just like that, Maria's life got even more complicated. But for the first time in years, she felt something other than tired. She felt awake. Over the next few days, Maria started a new routine. She set her alarm for 4:15 instead of 4:30. She got to the library at 5:30 and practiced for an hour on the old upright piano in the community room. The instrument was nothing like the beautiful Steinway at the concert hall, but it worked. Her fingers stumbled at first, relearning passages she'd once known by heart. But slowly, painfully, the music started coming back. Then she'd rush to her cleaning job, work until noon, grab lunch, Waitress all afternoon and evening, come home and collapse. On weekends, she practiced in the afternoons while Sophia did homework nearby. Her daughter asked questions. "Why are you playing piano all the time, Mama?" "I'm entering a competition," Maria told her. "Like on TV?" "Sort of. I probably won't win, but I want to try." Sophia thought about this. "My teacher says trying is important, even if you don't win." Your teacher is right. Her mother helped when she could, despite her arthritic hands. She'd listen to Maria practice and offer advice, pointing out passages that needed work, suggesting interpretations. Sometimes, late at night, she'd talk about when Maria was young, about all the promise everyone saw in her. "You could have been great," her mother said once. "I still can be," Maria replied, and she surprised herself by believing it. The weeks passed in a blur of exhaustion and music. Maria's fingers developed new calluses on top of the old ones. Her back ached from hunching over the piano. She was tired all the time, running on coffee and determination. But the Rachmaninoff was coming back to her. More than that, it was becoming hers in a way it never had been before. When she'd played it at 19, she'd understood the notes. Now at 34, having lived through loss and struggle and sacrifice, she understood the soul of it. The weeks leading up to the audition passed in a blur that felt both endless and too fast. Maria's life became a careful choreography of work and practice, sleeping in short bursts whenever she could find time. Her body protested constantly. Her shoulders ached from carrying trays and pushing mops. Her fingers cramped from hours at the piano. Some mornings she woke up and wasn't sure she could do it for one more day. But then she'd remember Victoria's dismissive voice. Leave the music to actual musicians. And she'd force herself out of bed and start all over again. The library piano became her refuge. Ruth, the librarian, started leaving coffee for her on those early morning practice sessions. They didn't talk much, but sometimes Ruth would sit in the back of the room and listen. One morning, after Maria finished running through a particularly difficult passage, Ruth spoke up. "That's beautiful. What is it?" "Rachmaninoff, Piano Concerto No. 2. Are you playing it for something special?" Maria hesitated. She hadn't told many people about the audition. It felt too vulnerable, too much like setting herself up for failure. But Ruth's face was kind, genuinely interested. "There's an audition in a few weeks. To perform with the symphony." Ruth's eyes widened. "That's wonderful. You must be very talented." "I used to be. I'm not sure anymore." "Well, from what I just heard, I'd say you still are." Those small moments of encouragement kept Maria going. Danny at the restaurant noticed she seemed different, more focused somehow. "You got some secret I should know about?" he joked one night. "Just trying something new," Maria said. "Good for you." Life's too short to not try things, but not everyone was supportive. At the concert hall, one of the other cleaning staff, an older man named Frank, saw her looking at posters advertising the gala. "You thinking about going to that fancy show?" he asked. "Maybe," Maria said carefully. He snorted. "That world ain't for people like us. Better to know your place." Know your place. How many times had Maria heard some version of that in her life? Know your place. Don't reach too high. Be grateful for what you have. Don't imagine you could be anything other than what you are. She was so tired of knowing her place. As the audition date got closer, Maria's practice became more intense. She booked extra time at the library on weekends. Sophia started bringing her homework to the community room, doing math problems while her mother played. Sometimes Sophia would look up from her work and watch her mother's hands moving across the keys, a look of wonder on her face. "You're really good, Mama," she said one Saturday. "Thank you, baby." "Are you nervous about the audition?" Maria paused, her hands resting on the keys, terrified. "But you're doing it anyway?" "But I'm doing it anyway." Sophia considered this. That's what being brave is, right? Being scared but doing it anyway? That's exactly what it is. 2 weeks before the audition, disaster struck. Maria was carrying a heavy tray at Romano's when someone bumped into her from behind. She stumbled, caught herself, but twisted her wrist badly in the process. Pain shot up her arm, sharp and immediate. She finished her shift, but by the time she got home, her wrist was swollen and throbbing. Her mother took one look at it and insisted she go to urgent care. "I can't afford urgent care," Maria said. "You can't afford not to. What if it's broken?" It wasn't broken, thankfully, just a bad sprain. The doctor wrapped it and told her to rest it for at least a week, preferably 2. No heavy lifting, no repetitive motion, no piano. Maria sat in the urgent care waiting room afterward, staring at her wrapped wrist, and felt tears burning in her eyes. 2 weeks. The audition was in 2 weeks. She'd been practicing every single day, pushing herself to the limit. And now this. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe the universe was telling her this was a stupid idea. Maybe she should just give up. She went home and lay on the couch, her wrist elevated, and let herself cry. Her mother sat beside her, not saying anything, just being there. "I can't play like this," Maria said finally. "No, not right now. The audition is in 2 weeks." "I know. So that's it. It's over." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "When you were 7 years old, you fell off your bike and scraped up both your hands pretty badly. You cried because you had a recital in 2 weeks and you were sure you couldn't play. Do you remember what happened?" Maria shook her head. "You practiced anyway, not on the piano but in your mind. You visualized the piece, moved your fingers in the air, and when your hands healed, the music was still there. Better even because you'd thought about it so deeply. That was different. I was a kid. I had time. You have time now. Rest your wrist like the doctor said. But don't rest your mind." So that's what Maria did. For 5 days, she didn't touch a piano. Instead, she listened to recordings of Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto over and over. She studied the score on her phone, memorizing every note, even though she already knew it by heart. She moved her fingers in the air, running through passages, feeling the weight and shape of each phrase. It was torture, not being able to play. But in a strange way, it forced her to go deeper into the music than she ever had before. She listened to different interpretations by famous pianists, heard the choices they made, understood the piece in new ways. On the 6th day, her wrist felt better. Not perfect, but better. She went to the library early and sat at the piano, unwrapping the bandage carefully. Ruth appeared with coffee, like always. "How's the wrist?" "Better. I'm going to try playing a little. Just slow practice. Don't push it." "I won't." But of course she did push it. Not too hard, not stupidly, but she only had 8 days left. 8 days to make sure she was ready. She played scales slowly, testing her wrist. It ached, but didn't hurt badly. She worked through easy pieces first, warming up gently. Then carefully she started on the Rachmaninoff. Her wrist held. It wasn't comfortable, but it held. Over the next week, Maria practiced with a new kind of intensity. She knew she might only get one shot at this. Her wrist might not hold up during the actual audition. She might walk in there and completely fall apart. But she was going to try. 3 days before the audition, she finally told Danny about it. They were taking a break in the back of the restaurant, and he noticed she kept flexing her wrist. "You okay? That wrist still bothering you?" "Yeah. I sprained it a couple of weeks ago." "What were you doing?" Maria hesitated, then thought, "What the hell?" "Practicing piano. I'm auditioning to perform with the symphony." Danny nearly spit out his coffee. "You're what?" "I know, it's crazy. It's not crazy. That's amazing. I had no idea you played piano." "I don't. I mean, I did, a long time ago, before all this." She gestured vaguely at the restaurant, at her life. "And you just decided to start again?" "Something like that." Danny grinned. "Good for you. When's the audition?" "Sunday afternoon." "You nervous?" "Out of my mind." "You're going to crush it." "I can tell." "How can you tell?" "Because you're the kind of person who shows up every single day and does the work, no matter how tired you are or how much it sucks. If you're bringing that energy to piano, those other people don't stand a chance." Maria wished she had his confidence, but his words stayed with her. 2 days before the audition, Tony, her manager, pulled her aside. "I heard from Danny you got something important on Sunday." Maria's heart sank. She'd requested the day off weeks ago, but she was always worried they'd need her and she'd have to choose between the audition and her job. "Yeah, is that okay? I know Sunday brunch is busy. It's fine. We'll manage." Danny said it's a music thing? An audition. For the symphony. Tony looked surprised. "Huh. Didn't know you were into that kind of stuff." "I used to be. A long time ago. Well, good luck. Hope you get it." "Thanks." The night before the audition, Maria could barely sleep. She lay in bed running through the piece in her mind, her fingers twitching slightly against the sheets. Beside her, Sophia stirred and mumbled something in her sleep. Maria looked at her daughter's peaceful face and felt a wave of doubt. What was she doing? She should be using this day off to pick up an extra shift somewhere to make more money.
She had responsibilities.
She had people depending on her. But then she thought about what she'd be teaching Sophia if she gave up now. That dreams were only for other people. That you should know your place and stay there. That trying and failing was worse than never trying at all. No, whatever happened tomorrow, at least she'd tried. At least she'd refused to let someone like Victoria Ashford decide what she was capable of. Maria got up early on Sunday before her alarm even went off. She took a long shower, trying to calm her nerves. She'd borrowed a dress from one of the other waitresses, a simple black one that was nicer than anything she owned. It wasn't fancy like what the other auditioners would probably wear, but it was respectable. Her mother helped her with her hair, pinning it back the way she used to wear it when she performed as a teenager. Sophia watched from the doorway, eyes wide. "You look pretty, Mama." "Thank you, baby. Are you scared?" "Very scared. You can do it." "I know you can." Maria knelt down and hugged her daughter tight. "I love you." "You know that?" "I love you too." Her mother pressed something into her hand. It was a silver bracelet, simple and delicate. "This was mine from when I used to perform. For luck, Mama, I can't." "Yes, you can. You're going to go out there and show them what real music sounds like. Not music from someone who's had everything handed to them. Music from someone who knows what it costs. That's the most powerful kind." Maria put on the bracelet. Her hands were shaking. The audition was at 2 in the afternoon. Maria arrived at the concert hall at 1:30, her stomach churning with nerves. There was a line of people waiting outside the audition room and her heart sank. They all looked so young, so polished, so confident. Girls in expensive dresses with perfect hair. Boys in tailored suits. They carried themselves like they belonged here. Maria got in line behind a young woman who was warming up her fingers, running through silent scales in the air. She had that look of someone who'd been training in music their whole life, who'd never had to choose between practicing and paying rent. "First time auditioning?" the girl asked, friendly enough. "Yeah, you?" "Oh, I've done a bunch of competitions. This is my 3rd time auditioning for this gala. Didn't make it the other years, but I think I've got a better piece this time." "That's great. What are you playing?" "Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, 3rd movement." "What about you?" "Rachmaninoff, 2nd concerto." "Just the 1st movement." The girl's eyes widened slightly. "That's ambitious." "That's a really difficult piece." Maria just nodded. She knew it was ambitious. That was kind of the point. As they got closer to the door, Maria could hear other auditioners playing inside. Some were good. Some were very good. Her stomach tightened. What was she thinking? These were serious musicians. She was just a janitor who used to play piano. Then the door opened and someone called, "Number 47." That was her. Maria took a deep breath, straightened her borrowed dress, and walked into the room where Victoria Ashford was waiting. The audition room was smaller than Maria had imagined. Just the stage area of the concert hall, with a table set up in the front row where 3 judges sat. Victoria Ashford was in the center, flanked by 2 other people Maria didn't recognize. A man with gray hair and glasses and a younger woman with her hair in a tight bun. Victoria was looking down at her papers, making notes from the previous audition. She hadn't looked up yet. Maria's heart hammered in her chest as she walked across the stage toward the piano. This was it. This was actually happening. She could turn around right now. Walk out. No one would blame her. These judges had probably already heard 20 talented musicians today. What difference would one more make? She could go home, put her work clothes back on, and pretend this whole thing never happened. But her feet kept moving forward. "Name?" the man with gray hair asked, glancing at his clipboard. "Maria Santos." He found her on the list and checked her off. "And what will you be playing for us today?" Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, the first movement. Victoria's head snapped up at that. For the first time, she looked directly at Maria. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something that might have been surprise or maybe disbelief. Maria watched the conductor put two and two together. The janitor from that night. The waitress from the restaurant. Here auditioning, about to play one of the most challenging pieces in the piano repertoire. Victoria's expression settled into something neutral, professional, but Maria caught the slight raise of her eyebrow. That small gesture said everything. "This should be interesting. Whenever you're ready," the man said. Maria walked to the piano. It was the same Steinway she'd played that night, the one Victoria had scolded her for touching. The instrument that was worth more than Maria would make in 5 years. She sat down on the bench. Her borrowed dress felt too tight suddenly. Her hands were sweating. She could feel all three judges watching her, waiting, probably expecting her to crash and burn, probably already composing the polite rejection in their heads. Maria placed her hands on the keys. They were cool and smooth under her rough fingers. For a moment she just sat there trying to calm her racing heart. She thought about Sophia, watching her get ready this morning with such pride in her eyes. She thought about her mother, giving her the silver bracelet, believing in her when she barely believed in herself. She thought about every early morning at the library, every hour of practice squeezed between work shifts, every time her body screamed at her to just stop and rest, but she kept going. She thought about Victoria's voice that night. "You're just a janitor. Leave the music to actual musicians." Maria took a deep breath and began to play. The opening chords of Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto are some of the most famous in classical music. Deep, resonant, dramatic, they're meant to be played by a full orchestra. But Maria had arranged the piano part to capture that orchestral power. The sound filled the small audition space, rich and commanding. Her hands moved across the keys, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Forgot about the judges watching, forgot about her nervousness. There was only the music. But then, 30 seconds in, her injured wrist twinged. A sharp pain that made her fingers stumble slightly. She missed a note. Recovered, but the interruption had broken her concentration. She could feel herself tensing up, could feel the panic starting to creep in. At the judges' table, Victoria was writing something. Probably noting the mistake. Probably already deciding Maria wasn't good enough. The music continued, but Maria could hear the stiffness in her playing now. The way she was holding back, afraid of making another mistake. Afraid of proving Victoria right. She came to the lyrical second theme, the beautiful melody that soars over gentle arpeggios. This was her favorite part of the piece, the part that had made her fall in love with Rachmaninoff as a teenager. But she was playing it too carefully, too perfectly. The notes were all correct, but the soul was missing. This wasn't working. She was going to finish this audition having proved nothing except that she was exactly what Victoria thought she was, someone who didn't belong here. And then something shifted. Maria thought about the last 6 weeks. Thought about practicing at 5:30 in the morning before anyone else in the city was awake. Thought about her mother's arthritic hands guiding her through difficult passages. Thought about Sophia doing her homework while Maria played, occasionally looking up and smiling. She thought about every time someone had told her to know her place. Every time someone had assumed she wasn't capable of more. Every door that had closed in her face because she was too poor, too busy, too ordinary. She thought about the music itself. About what Rachmaninoff had poured into these notes. He'd written this concerto when he was depressed, when he thought his career was over, when everyone doubted him. And he'd created something beautiful anyway, something that lasted. Maria's hands relaxed. She stopped trying to play perfectly and started playing honestly. The music changed. It was still the same notes, but now they meant something. The pain in her wrist became part of the performance, adding an edge of struggle to the difficult passages. The exhaustion in her bones informed the tender moments, making them more poignant. Every sacrifice, every early morning, every moment of doubt, it all poured into the music. This wasn't the playing of someone who'd had everything handed to them. This was the playing of someone who'd fought for every note, who knew what music cost, who understood that beauty could come from struggle. At the judges' table, Victoria had stopped writing. She was leaning forward slightly, her pen forgotten in her hand. The other two judges had similar expressions. They were listening, really listening. Maria played through the development section where the themes build and clash and transform. Her fingers flew across the keys, no longer afraid. The piano sang under her hands, sometimes tender, sometimes fierce, always honest. She reached the recapitulation, where the main themes returned transformed, deepened by everything that's come before. Maria played with her eyes closed now, completely lost in the music. This was why she'd fallen in love with piano in the first place. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, not because she wanted to be famous, but because sometimes when everything aligned just right, music could say things that words couldn't, could express feelings too big for any other language. The final chords approached. Maria opened her eyes. She played the last dramatic flourishes with everything she had, pouring 11 years of deferred dreams into those final measures. The last note faded into silence. Maria sat at the piano, breathing hard, her wrist throbbing, her whole body trembling slightly. For a moment, no one said anything. Then the gray-haired man started clapping, not politely, enthusiastically. The woman with the bun joined in. And then slowly, Victoria Ashford put down her pen and clapped too. Maria stood up, her legs shaky. She wasn't sure what to do. Were they just being polite? Had she completely messed it up? "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where did you study?" The gray-haired man asked. He was smiling. "That had to be a good sign, right? Westfield Conservatory. But I only went for 2 years. That was a long time ago." "And what have you been doing since then?" the woman asked. There was genuine curiosity in her voice, not judgment. Maria hesitated. Should she tell them the truth? Would it matter? Before she could answer, Victoria spoke up. "Ms. Santos and I have met before, actually." Her voice was careful, measured. "She works at this concert hall," there it was, out in the open. The gray-haired man and the woman both looked at Maria with new understanding. Now they knew. She wasn't one of them. She was the help. Maria lifted her chin. "That's right. I clean this building at night. I also waitress at Romano's during the day. I'm a single mother. I practice at the public library when I can find time." She looked directly at Victoria. "I haven't had the luxury of studying music full-time for the past decade. But I never stopped loving it. And I never stopped believing I had something to say through it." The room was quiet. Maria's heart was pounding again, but this time not from nerves, from defiance, from the sheer act of taking up space in a room that hadn't been designed for people like her. The gray-haired man cleared his throat. "Well, that was certainly one of the most compelling performances we've heard today. Thank you, Ms. Santos. We'll be in touch with all auditioners within the week." "Thank you for the opportunity," Maria said. She walked off the stage, her borrowed shoes clicking on the wooden floor. As she reached the door, Victoria's voice stopped her. "Mrs. Santos?" Maria turned back. Victoria stood up from the judge's table. The expression on her face was complicated. That was extraordinary playing. Thank you for sharing it with us." Maria nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and walked out. In the hallway, her legs finally gave out. She sat down on a bench, shaking all over. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Whether or not she won didn't matter anymore. She'd stood in that room and played her heart out, and no one could take that away from her. The young woman who'd been ahead of her in line came out of another hallway. "How'd it go?" "I don't know," Maria said honestly. "But I gave it everything I had. That's all you can do, right?" "Right." Maria took the subway home. On the train, she looked at her hands. They were still shaking slightly. Her wrist was throbbing. She'd probably need to ice it when she got home, and she had to work tomorrow, early shift cleaning offices, then the dinner service at Romano's. But for right now, for these few hours before regular life swallowed her up again, she let herself feel proud. When she walked into her apartment, Sophia rushed to meet her. "How was it?" "Did you win?" "I don't know yet, baby. They said they'll tell everyone in a week, but how did it feel?" Maria thought about the question. It felt like flying. Her mother came out of the kitchen. "Tell me everything," so Maria did. She told them about the other auditioners, about her nervousness, about the moment in the middle when her wrist hurt and she almost gave up, about the shift that happened when she stopped trying to be perfect and started being honest. "And Victoria Ashford?" her mother asked. "The conductor who was so rude to you?" "She was there. One of the judges. How did she react?" Maria smiled slightly. "She listened. Really listened. And I think maybe, just maybe, she heard something that surprised her. That night, Maria let herself imagine what would happen if she won, performing with the full orchestra, wearing a beautiful gown, her family in the audience. It was a nice dream, but even if she didn't win, something had changed. She'd proven something to herself, that she was more than her circumstances, that her worth wasn't determined by her job title, that she had a voice and it deserved to be heard. The week that followed was torture. Every day, Maria checked her email obsessively, looking for word from the symphony. Nothing came. She tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting back to the audition. Had she really played as well as she thought? Or had the judges just been polite? On Friday, Danny asked about it. Hear anything yet? Not yet. They said by the end of the week. It's only Friday. Still time, I know. I'm trying not to get my hopes up. Too late for that, I think. He was right. Despite everything Maria told herself about being realistic, about not expecting too much, hope had taken root somewhere deep in her chest. And hope, she was learning, was both wonderful and terrifying. Friday evening came and went. No email. Maria tried to tell herself it was fine. She'd tried. That was what mattered. But on Saturday morning, while she was cleaning an office building, her phone buzzed. An email from the symphony. Maria stared at her phone screen, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The email was sitting there in her inbox, unopened. Subject line, Gala Audition Results. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Around her, the empty office building was silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. She was alone on the 15th floor, a vacuum cleaner sitting idle beside her. She couldn't open it. If it was bad news, if they were rejecting her, she didn't want to know. Not right now. Not while she was at work, trying to hold herself together. But if she didn't open it now, she'd spend the rest of the day torturing herself. Imagining what it said, Maria took a deep breath and tapped the email. Dear Mrs. Santos, thank you for auditioning for our annual Undiscovered Talent competition. We had an exceptional pool of candidates this year, and the decision was not easy. However, we are thrilled to inform you that you have been selected as this year's winner. Your performance demonstrated not only remarkable technical skill, but also a depth of musical expression that moved everyone present. Maria read the words 3 times before they registered. She'd won. She'd actually won. She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Then she was crying, standing in an empty office building at 7 in the morning with a vacuum cleaner at her feet. Tears streaming down her face. She'd won. The email continued with details about rehearsals, what she'd need to wear, dates and times she needed to be available. Maria read through it all in a daze. The gala was in 6 weeks. There would be 3 rehearsals with the full orchestra. Victoria Ashford would be conducting. Maria called her mother immediately. I won, she said when her mother picked up. Mama, I won. She heard her mother's sharp intake of breath, then her mother started crying too. I knew you would. I knew it. I can't believe it. I actually can't believe it. Believe it, mija. You earned this. That afternoon at Romano's, Maria was floating. Danny noticed immediately. You heard something. Maria couldn't stop grinning. I won.